Welcome back to the third and final part of Betting People with Shane Anderson. So we talked a lot about racing jurisdictions and the racing media in the last part, and we will do so again here. But the situation with racing in Australia is that the Spring Carnival will be continuing essentially behind closed doors, basically on a recurring basis. Now, there's been an increased uptake in race consumption over here, certainly, given the period state our sport is currently in. So what I'd like to ask you would be, are there a couple of horses or jockeys we should be looking out for if we do decide to make a late night of it?
It's always a tough question at this stage of year because a lot can happen off the back of the Australian racing season starts in August and it finishes in July. So we've got the last of our sort of major races in Australia happening now for the current racing season. The South Australian Derbies this weekend. There's some big races coming up in Queensland and so on. But I think from a rider's perspective, we've got an outstanding group of young jockeys. But the one who's really rising to the top at the moment is Damien Lane. Damien's been spending a lot of time riding in Japan. He's there at the moment. But of course, last year he was able to win both the Caulfield Cup and the Cox Plate, as well as the Golden Slipper. So 3 of the big 4 races in Australia he achieved last year. He's just an outstanding jockey, great judge of pace. He's strong in a finish, and his tactics 9 times out of 10 are right. I mean, Damien's fantastic. James McDonald, who a lot of the people in the UK would know well because he's had a few stints over there in his time. He's another elite level jockey. He's still relatively very young, but he's had phenomenal success. And then you've got sort of the older brigade, the likes of Craig Williams, who won the Melbourne Cup last yeyear. He's still riding tremendously well. But the 2 that really stand out for mine of that younger group coming through are Damien Lane and James McDonald. They're outstanding talents. But I'll tell you what, I'd love to see Tom Marquand make another trip back down to Australia. I know that he's hugely regarded in the UK. He's probably going to give Shane Murphy a really big push for the overall title this year. But he's really matched up well. I remember interviewing him when he came out as a young apprentice to Australia and rode for a couple of weeks back when he was about 18 years of age from memory. You could just see from then he was destined to do great things. He's had some breakthrough big race success in the past few weeks in Sydney. I'd love to see him come back down for another stint for our Spring Carnival because I think he'd make a massive amount of noise because I know a lot of the big stables rate him and they'd want to get behind him.
Some fascinating names there, and indeed some that our viewers would be familiar with. Steering the conversation again to racing its future, there's often a lot of debate about what race can do to attract new fans, especially at this time when all sports are in a very tough spot right now. If and when racing returns in Europe, what can it do to either attract some new audiences or maybe to keep anybody who might come to discover it, given that there's not an awful lot of sports on at the moment, to be frank?
Yeah, it's again, you've raised a really important point here. I think the rusted on true racing fan will always be the rusted on true racing fan. They'll come to the sport and they'll engage with the sport and they'll bet on the sport as often as it's put on. But I think if you're going to then push into an opportunity that exists, let's say, for example, horse racing in Germany is already resumed. We're potentially going to have racing in France from May 11, and there will be a hiatus for other sports. One, I'd be pushing very hard a whole marketing campaign to say how great the sport is. I'd be promoting aspects of animal welfare because for a lot of Gen Z at the moment, they look at horse racing and immediate response is, well, it's cruel, without actually knowing that the sport is cruel because there's a whole shift in animals being used as elements of entertainment. And that's the reality of what happens in horse racing. It's a part of an entertainment story. So I'd be coming out with some really strong messaging. But I touched on their Gen Z because I think that's one area that racing has never got right, and that is targeting to younger people. It's not just about being able to go to the races and have a drink with your friends and dress up and maybe having a live performance at the end of the race day or something. There's more to it. And we're seeing with some amazing media organizations in the US, as an example, sites like, Barstool Sports and Bleacher Report in particular, they're telling amazing, engaging stories through social media channels that are targeting people, age 10 through to 18, 18 through to 35, in ways that they just absolutely love their sport. And they're doing it by making sure that their elite performers are readily available and being a part of the process. So it's not like sticking someone in a rigid way in a studio and asking them in a suit to answer some questions. It's getting them to film themselves on their phones and have fun with their audience and be a part of the journey. And I think if racing can start doing more in that space and really trying to engage with Gen Z, or Gen Z, depending on which way you want to pronounce it, it will be something that can help revolutionize the sport. The other aspect I want to touch on too is, racing, what has made racing the main or the backbone of gambling for so long is the fact it's a really cool way of having a bet and investing your money, because for those who want to do the work, the information's there and you can make a really informed judgment and decision, and you can get good prices about backing your judgment. I think racing needs to continue to put the punter, the bettor, right at the heart of a lot of their thought process, particularly when it comes to telling stories and engaging with an audience through broadcast. Make a punter, make them feel a part of it, make them feel at the heart of the coverage, and look at innovative ways that you can keep telling and engaging with a betting audience in a way that's never been done before. And I think if we can see the racing broadcasters and the racing industry as well, so it's not just a broadcast requirement, but the racing industry start thinking more that way, and not just how things have been done for the last 20 or 25 years that they know they've got some success from, we'll then be able to see that we're bringing a whole new group of people into the game. It's not just about, as I said earlier, dressing up, having a drink and being with your friends at the track. There's a lot more to it to try and engage a new generation of fans.
Indeed, some very pertinent thoughts there. Just a bit on the lighter side here, but I've been asking these from everybody who's come on to Betting People so far. We're going to give you a chance to have, let's say, 4 guests at the racing dinner of your dreams. Who are they and why?
I could go the easy way and say 4 jockeys, because it probably wouldn't cost me a lot of money with their diets. But no, of current day people that are with us, and I'm assuming you're still wanting me to go with people that are still with us, I would certainly love Frankie Dettori to be there, because I think he'd have so many amazing stories and he'd probably end up being the life of the party. I'd love to have Aidan O'Brien there, so you can actually really get some deep insights and he's just a master. He's just freakishly gifted. I'd love Gay Waterhouse from Australian racing perspective. Gay is one of the greatest ambassadors there's ever been for world racing, not just Australian racing. She's a phenomenal success. And probably the fourth one, I'd probably go Gary Stevens from the US, because I think he's lived a very, very interesting life and he's had some great success. So there's 4 that I'd like to sit at a table with over dinner, and hopefully one of them pays the bill.
I think that's a really good answer, and I think actually a really good note upon which to end this Better People interview. Thank you so much for your time, Shane Anderson.
Great to be with you, Will, and thank you.
And thank you very much for watching.